We are live.
Yay! I am Old New Dude, and he is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son. This is
They have.
Theories.
I just thought of something. They have Uber Prints is where I got our shirts and stuff like that. I want to see if there's a Uber banners or something to that nature. I'm going to get a Lemongate banner to go
All
to
right.
your Lemongate shirt.
All right. Sounds good. Um,
And speaking of Lemongate,
yeah. Lemongate. There's a new Lemongate video on our one of our favorite creators' channels. So Guy, um, the Green Bard, is a real life drinking buddy.
yes, yes,
and,
we've shared traits with him for sure. He's a friend of the
and
channel and a friend in life.
and yeah, I probably texted him and probably messaged him more than earlier than you. Anyway, let's put it that way. I've exchanged ideas with him on Reddit and on Twitter before you and I had really talked much. So so we kind of go way back, as they say. Um,
Mhm.
and he has a new video. It's a new Lemongate video, and it's basically Oswell is Oswell, which is to say that Oswell Went is. Oh, I love his interpretation of Sansa. So Sansa, we see her. Hey, yeah, yes, finally I get to catch you guys live. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy Wednesday, Tris. I'll say. Try and call him Tris. Anyway, heyo, and good afternoon, old folks. How goes it? Yes, it goes well. Um,
Yeah.
we were just saying that one of our best friends in the fandom is he's actually been a he's the only one we've had as a co-host on chapter by chapter analysis. Although most of those are
Yeah, as
now
far as
going to be marked private. Um,
yes, we're
those are all
another
going to
creator. And he's a
be.
legit the creator. All right. I mean,
Yeah, he's a musician even
yeah.
with some great Song of Ice and Fire related songs. We were just talking about what our favorite the Green Bard videos are, and I used to say that my favorite were his Song of Ice and Fire related songs. Not that he doesn't have great analysis as well, he does, but now I think my favorite are his Lemongate videos because I have a soft spot for Lemongates.
As far as the level of YouTube creators talking about a Song of Ice and Fire theories, the big guys out there with the 100,000s and all that kind of stuff, they're the whales. Okay. We are a minnow in that ocean. And I would
That is
say
definitely true.
Gee would be shark level, great white level, maybe bigger than that. Compared
Nettles
to
Nettles is
but we
another one
all
of our another of our real life drinking buddies. Girl Nettles is a little
yeah.
bigger than Guy is, but and we've both had pleasant interactions
I
with
meant to ask
David
her.
Lightbringer.
I meant to ask her. Oh, that her character, Girl Nettles. Nettles got written out of House of the Dragon.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to find out how pissed off she was.
She's been honest about her understanding that. I would say, she's like, I get it. They're kind of similar. I get, and they like to combine characters. I,
They combine
they're
characters
such
to save
different
on.
characters, though.
Yeah, they combine characters to save on payroll. We've already hired this actress, and
Yeah, and it's
we're
true
hire
that
this.
the twins probably don't have enough to do until Aegon the Third comes along. So I mean, when Aegon the Third is looking for a bride, they're like the main characters basically. But
Mhm.
not to marry him, but to help. but um, but the so anyway, I I they don't have enough to do, especially Reina, and so I get it. You want to give the actresses something to do, and and she gets it. And that's my point. Girl Nettles was like, yeah, I get it. Anyway, so she's talked about this quite a bit leading up to that rumors of that decision as the rumors came out. She was like, yeah, that makes sense. This is probably true. Shout out to Glidus if you want some more great music. Song of Ice and Fire themed included.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, yes, without a doubt.
Yeah. And As I was saying, we're definitely both friendly with online friends, as it were, with David Lightbringer. I
Yeah.
occasionally have
That's
said some
actually the
negative
one that
things
put
about
all of us
him,
together. Yeah.
um,
David's the
but
one
that
that got
was
us
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I heard about you from him, and he's actually watched some of our videos, and I've streamed with him and on Girl Nettles channel with him and Grey Waste Tim
together.
once, which it was good. It was fun. It
Yeah.
wasn't what I expected. I got
Yeah.
I got
We're
like
teeny tiny creators, but we know bigger creators.
yeah, yeah.
And actually had conversations with them.
Yep. So yeah, and when I was introducing myself, he goes, "Oh yeah, I know you. I know you from the old New Dude channel." So he was um, immediately was like, "Oh yeah, I know who you are."
He loves it.
Which is not
When I dressed
which is
up
not
as Bobby B with the wig and everything, and thing. I mean, that's probably his favorite video that I had. It said I needed to do more of that. Uh, I
I've
did take his
distracted
advice.
you.
Yeah.
I've distracted
Well,
you.
I mean,
Well,
I had fun. It was a weird day.
a lot of his some of his advice to you was to stream more with me. I believe.
Yeah. I would say we're the odd couple. I mean, you're the encyclopedia, and I'm the guy that does the
Oh
chooses
no
the
no no
homework.
no 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 no. There's a so uh, the Rereading Wolf podcast has said that the they had a review of them that said that they liked Rereading Wolf because it was a Mully and the scholar. Oh, I can't. What are the names from the X Files?
Mulder and Scully and Mulder.
Mulder, yeah, and they liked the fact that there was like one of each of those on the somebody who was a little more grounded and versus somebody who was a little more tinfoil as is what they were saying. And first off, we're
One of
not that far
the
apart.
Hmm?
First off, I don't think we're that far apart, and
No.
secondly, um, it's good to have some of both, right? Somebody's trying to keep it more grounded and on track versus somebody who's trying to and like I said, as I've told you, this specifically was the Gene Wolfe analysis that got me thinking that some of the stuff that's like completely unsupported or not unsupported, unnecessary. Some of the stuff that's completely unnecessary is probably in the author's head because we know who his mentor was, and his mentor had published essays and letters on his work, including a letter that he sent to George that George practically quotes if you ask him what his favorite books are. But see my channel and my recent 3-minute video. I think it's about 3 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, if Gene Wolfe was deliberately doing some of that stuff where it's like nobody had any idea, but Gene Wolfe was like, the astute reader will notice this, then George is probably doing that too.
I look at it this way. I mean, as careful as George is with his answers as far as interviews go, he is even more careful about the words he puts on the page.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, a theory based on a half a sentence or a sentence that's in the
Yeah.
story
No, that's what I'm
still
saying.
is not simple. It's still a theory. It's still a
No,
viable theory.
that's what I'm
Still
saying
worthy of a
is
rabbit hole.
his mentor was doing things where he's like, careful, an astute reader will notice this. And like all the scholars were like, nobody ever noticed that.
Well, they didn't know about. I mean, the theory that we're reading a mystery novel versus I mean, the George is specifically lying to us to understand a lot of the ins and outs the of the books. But I mean, there's been content creators theorizing on this subject for ever. So I mean, the fact that you would take, I find it hard that somebody would walk into a bookstore that had never watched Game of Thrones, never heard of the book series, and walk up to this and start with a Game of Thrones and not know that there's so much written between the lines and between the words that there's theories on every page that this supports this. I mean, just the last chapter we did, on my notebook, I had 7 sentences or paragraphs that supported theories that they're not major theories, that they're still theories that we'll probably never get the answer to half of them, but it's still textual, structured sentences that lead to something else, and that's in the 5th book. So I mean, it goes all the way back to Game of Thrones. George says everything you need to know to figure this out, or most of what you need to know to figure this out, is all in the 1st book.
Yeah,
Which is why
and by the way, that book includes the comparison, that the paragraph that a lot of people think proves R plus L equals J, which I think really proves that John is Ned's bastard, which is where he thinks about how. Should we read that paragraph?
Yeah, you can pull it up. Yeah. Oh yeah. While you're doing that, I mentioned it before we started the video. I had a thought last night, and my memory sucks. Anybody that's watched this, I repeatedly, I have a hard time remembering last week. So I reread the book so many times, is to keep the information, or what little information stays up there. Last night I'm like, okay, with the R plus L equals J,
I got
Die
it.
Hard. Is simple. I mean,
go ahead.
And everybody's like, okay, well, Ned's relieved that John's at the wall. He's taken the black, that he's given up all claim to the throne, that he's a secret Targaryen. And taking the black has saved him. He's no longer in threat. There was another way that Ned could have done the exact same thing without sending him to the wall, and that was ask his very best friend that he grew up with in the Vale, that has the power to legitimize bastards. And even if he was a secret Targaryen, he's still half Stark, which is done in the world where they take a child born of this bloodline and this bloodline, and they take the mother's bloodline, name that child that mother's bloodline, and give them this castle so they can rule under whatever name. Well, he could have asked his best friend in the entire world, "Hey, legitimize John, name him Stark."
I've got a counter to that I just hit me. So
okay, that's why I like conversation.
So the real the real point of Jon Snow is that he's supposed to be the legitimate Stark, and the others are the illegitimate Starks. The Richard III aspect, which George keeps trying to hint at with the Richard III references, and nobody gets it. But so one of the things that is important to him, even if Jon is R plus L, is not to create a civil war for Winterfell, right? Mm-hmm. So legitimizing Jon would complicate future inheritance of Winterfell too much. So therefore he wouldn't be willing to take that step.
In the eyes of Cat and Maester Luwin, I agree with you, but in the eyes of Ned and Jon, those that have seen
and Robb,
Ray and Robb,
yeah. Fair enough. He would be the same as Robb and be like, no, that's not a concern. Yeah, I agree with you.
Robb is the heir. Then Bran after him.
Yeah. Because I was looking at this paragraph, that argument hit me, right? So So let's go ahead and read the paragraph. So it's a pretty short paragraph. Ned thought, if it came to that, the life of some child I did not know against Robb and Sansa and Arya and Bran and Rickon, what would I do? Even more so, what would Catelyn do if it were Jon's life against the children of her body? He did not know. He prayed he never would. And so the point there is that Jon is the one likely to learn of the Richard III scenario here. And Catelyn is the one likely to, this is a parallel to Cersei wanting Bran to be dead rather than reveal the truth, and complain to Jaime. He saw us. Not actually wanting Jaime to throw Bran out the window, but wanting something to be done. And what else was he going to do? What did you expect me to do? Anyway,
he's going to give him a wet willy till he agrees not to tell.
Right. So anyway, the point is, it's this idea that the actual parent, co-parent of your bastards would try to kill an innocent son of Ned Stark to prevent the truth from coming out, which is that the supposedly lawful inheritors are actually baseborn. Right. That's the point of that. And people read it as, well, see, he's listing his children that could potentially be killed in a hypothetical. Well, this isn't a hypothetical. He prayed he never would means this is a very real scenario that is not a hypothetical, that he is in the same predicament as Cersei. Right. That's what he prayed he never would means.
Yeah. The Cersei and Catelyn comparison are on the nose.
Well, it's actually Jaime and Catelyn. It's actually Jaime and Catelyn here.
Right. Okay, well, yeah. But they're each the parent of bastards. And what would they do to protect?
Oh, yeah. Triss is like, this is very topical with the last episode of House of the Dragon, right? So there's discussions as to legitimacy and whether you legitimize someone. What does that, does that set a precedent that questions legitimacy of others and so forth?
Just in case we touch on these subjects, but yeah.
I mean, that's a topic that comes up is the legitimacy of bastards and legitimizing people and whether that creates a unrest and so forth. Anyway.
But my thing is, if Ned wanted to protect Jon and get the idea of, which there's already idea in Winterfell that Ashara Dayne's his mother, but if he's really a secret Targaryen and he wanted to protect him, he'd have the king name him Stark, and he looks like Ned. Nobody would think anything other than that, even without being legitimized.
And your point is that Ned and Robb and Jon would not consider that to be an issue, and we know this because we see Robb dismissing that as an issue. All right, fair enough.
But the reason it is not done, it's for plot. Is Jon cannot have a legitimized Stark name to where he does not go south. If he goes south, he dies with Robb. And then there's not Jon at the wall. So that was another reason that he's not giving a name. But I mean,
so I'm not. I mean, other than did I ever finish my story about Sansa?
No, I don't think you did. No, I think I interrupted.
My favorite part of Guy's video is the Sansa part. So we're all over the place as usual. Anyway. What a divergence! But
those are I'm going to tell you, those are my favorite live streams we do when we do tend to bounce around a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's what people are here for.
Yeah, well, I mean, on our new format.
My favorite part is the Sansa part. So this is Miss Oswald went, of course, and Oswald's was Sansa, but that's not the part. The part is the Arya rumor. So the rumor Arya hears that George wants to symbolize, and people don't get this. They think it's a reference to the fact that Catelyn is a Went as well as a Tully, and Sansa is very much Catelyn's daughter, and so this is Went symbolism associated with Sansa escaping. But think about what that means. He doesn't give you Tully symbolism. He doesn't give you Tully symbolism when she actually took a boat. He's telling you her taking that boat is Went symbolism. It is House Went carrying her off. That is what he's using. He's using the bat and the Went symbolism, and people are like, "Oh, well, that's because she's Catelyn's daughter and Catelyn's half Went." No, he's telling you House Went carried off Sansa.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, when he said that, I was like, of course, that's what he's doing.
With George using the same name for different characters, especially with Brandon and making it confusing, for him to use the same name on the same character at different times in our story, to like, okay, it's just another character that has that name, right? Well, no, it's George using the same name for the same character, hiding it in a story where there are tons of people
Well,
with the same
and,
name.
and it's very obvious that Dantos is shocked to see him, and that implies that Dantos has not been dealing with him. He's been dealing with Littlefinger and some other agent of Littlefinger potentially, and
Right.
and so he is shocked to see him. He says his name. He blurts out that his name is Oswell, and he's like, "No names." Right. So
Does it
it's
have the three little dots, meaning that the sentence was interrupted?
no,
Do you
no. He's just said no names. No,
Oh, it
no, no.
does.
He
I
doesn't.
mean,
No,
when
he
he
says
says,
Oswell. He doesn't say Oswell went or Sir Oswell went or Sir Oswell. He just says Oswell. So he knows Oswell.
okay.
He knows Oswell went. And he knows this Oswell and he knows Oswell went. We know both of those things. And he wasn't expecting to see Oswell. We know that too.
Right. Well, I mean, was he expecting the road? I mean, he was expecting somebody before that come to them. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
No, he hadn't been told that it was Sir Oswell went. That's the point.
Right. So the survivor of the Duskendale that has been brought to court would know what
Absolutely.
Oswell.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one I was thinking maybe
But that gets me back to what I said before when you had told me this, that if his sons, Osfrey, Oswin, Aussies, the three Aussies, he would have had to break his vows before Robert's Rebellion to have these three sons.
Well, and Geek questions whether they're really his sons. In fact, he thinks the resemblance that Sansa's noticing is her own. So remember, most of them look like these Tully Wentz, right? Most of her family looks like Tully Wentz and not like Starks. And so he's like, George loves to do things and then explain them away as something else that isn't what they are. Good evening, Kirsty. So that's his point is we're implied that what she recognizes is the Kettle Blacks. But is that really what she was recognizing, or was she recognizing the family resemblance to Catelyn?
I worked my way around that one.
He might actually be looking. He looks strangely familiar to her. Well, is that because he looks like the Kettle Blacks, or is that because he looks like Catelyn, a Went? Anyway, his point is it can be both. It can be both, right? She's not quite sure. Wait, and that might be part of why she isn't sure who he resembles. Could be because he resembles both Catelyn and the Kettle Blacks.
Okay. Yeah, I can get behind that better than not the Kettle Blacks at all.
No, I'm sure he does look like the Kettle Blacks. But the point is, would you seen somebody who looks like the Kettle Blacks cause you to be like, he looks strangely familiar? Or would you be even more likely to notice the family resemblance if it's your own family as well?
Right. I don't know if it was on one of our live streams or on a comment, because here lately I've been watching more other creator content videos and theories and stuff. In the story, like with John Connington seeing Rhaegar in young Griff, except the eye color is slightly different, and then Mormont seeing what is it? What is his wife's name? Selyse Hightower or something like that.
I think that's right.
And then Selmy seeing Ashara's eyes in Dan. The characters in our story put their images of people from the past onto people that are in our story currently. They're seeing what they want to see. They're taking something that might be somewhat similar, and through the vague of time where we have Sansa misremembering a kiss that wasn't a kiss, and then a name of a sword, that the memories are flawed. So if there's something slightly similar, the person that sees the resemblance is making a mountain out of a molehill. they're seeing what they want to see. That doesn't help with this Lemongate part of it, but I don't know, just that popped back in my head is that we're John Conn's telling us he looks like Rhaegar, and then we had Cersei looking at Arya Waters looking like Rhaegar, and then as she got to look at it, like, nah, he really doesn't. The characters see what they want to see, and so with John Conn's misremembering what Rhaegar looked like, and it's just the typical uh, Targaryen features on a young boy that hasn't actually grown into his looks yet, telling us as the reader, oh, this guy looks like Rhaegar, so it must be Rhaegar's son. I think that's done to throw us off. That it's a Blackfire or a descendant of Aerion Brightflame when he was in exile. I mean, the theories of who Fagon it really is, there's quite a few. And the same when it comes to Dany, giving us different women that other men superimpose the people that they used to love onto her, giving us potential. Oh, well, she looks like a Hightower. She looks like a Dane, to distract us from the fact that she probably is. I mean, we agree that she's Rhaegar's daughter, but I mean,
No, I mean she has a dream in which she has to decide whether to become a fiery dragon or icy death howling forever alone in the darkness. And
yeah,
the stereotype for a lone animal is the wolf. So she's having a dream where she has to decide: am I an ice wolf or a dragon? Like
mm-hmm.
I don't know how much more blatant you could be than that. That's in the first book, right?
Yeah,
And it's in the first book that the smells that remind her of home are the smells of Tyrosh, and she's clearly an expert of the bazaars of the different free cities. So no, she isn't. You don't need to reassign. She has a Hiroshi accent in the first book. Like George tells us in the first book, I'm going to give you a character with a fake backstory and an accent that tells you where they're really from. Like,
yeah.
anyway,
I mean, I agree.
anyway.
Well, it's like
That was your point of the first book, right? Your point of the answers are in the first book. The first book tells you she has the Tarashi accent. The first book tells you can tell where somebody's really from by their accent. The first book tells you that she's an expert on all the bazaars of the free cities, and that she and then it's the smells from Tyrosh that remind her of home. The first book tells you that she's half dragon and half icy wolf. Like anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we agree. It's
Anyway,
just that there's a lot out there that
yeah, but no, I did want to. At one point, I wanted to mention all that because you mentioned that the answers in the first book that George has tried to tell us that the answers are in the first book. Those are all in the first book. Now, later, we have her being literally, basically saying, "I am Luke Skywalker to Rhaegar as my Darth Vader." I don't know what people think that means.
Speaking of, in the first book, we have Ned's fever dream that everybody puts so much stock in, but we think that it's covered underneath the half truths when only two men lived to ride away that day or something. I forget. It was specifically mentioning the day that Ned and Howland Reed left. That day,
By the way,
only two men lived to leave that day.
I mentioned that at one point. I mentioned that Guy had said that you could get to some of the I love that one, the Star Wars one. Yeah, that one is great. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm sorry. Oh yeah. I had said that at one point Guy had mentioned that you could get to some of the Green Bard content through archive.org, and so I reached out to Guy and asked him about that. He's like, oh yeah, let me take a look, and then he sent me some good stuff. Yeah, Order of the Green Hand. Yeah. Yeah, he said that you could get to the Order of the Green Hand stuff through that there was ways to get to some of their content, and I hadn't had much luck with the Wayback Machine. So I reached out to him, and he said, oh yeah, let me see what I can do, and he sent me some good stuff. So if you're interested, I do have some some links that he provided and stuff for like some old transcripts and things.
My son King Christopher pointed out that wasn't the first channel that we watched, but it is the channel that sticks in my head as the first channel we watched. Meaning that
What'd you watch before that? Do you know?
I can't remember. That's it.
Preston?
I can't, maybe, but I preferred the Order of the Green Hand.
I was avoiding them for a long time because for a long time I saw them say, they're it would keep recommending them to me, of course. I'd see it and it says, no, I got Christmas greetings from the Snows, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not. They obviously think that somehow there's some different parentage going on with the Starks, and I don't care about that. And then after a while, I finally Quinn's Ideas is what Tris thought was your first one.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right.
But so I was watching like Preston stuff and so forth, and it kept telling me I need to watch this. And finally, I watched it, and it went boom, specifically when they explained that paragraph and what it means, and I was like, oh, it all clicked. It went from this awkwardly worded paragraph to suddenly like all meaning everything, and suddenly it was like, oh, and then Ashara is Ashera, and I'm like, oh, I mean, it just all clicked.
I avoided social media. I avoided YouTube. I mean, vinyl pops. This is a really funny story. We avoided them like the plague until I'm buying Game of Thrones items for Chris at the mall. This is down in Florida, and I come across a Braun vinyl pop. I'm almost done. I got about 10, 15 bucks left I want to spend on him, and there's this pop. I'm like, okay, I'll just get him this as a shits and giggle kind of thing. And then once he opened it, it was like opening Pandora's box. We have hundreds of vinyl pops. I mean, it took me years to finally get his Rob Start because for the longest time it was going to cost $100, and I refused to pay $100 for a pop that cost $10 when they first bought it. And then finally, I got it. I think I finally got it for like $55 or something like that. I forget what it was. And I'm like, I'll buy it. But that one pop opened Pandora's box for the vinyl pops. I mean, we got He-Man, we got Transformers, we got Dragon Ball Z, we got shit ton of Game of Thrones. I forget all of it. Lord of the Rings. I mean, just all different kinds of genres and stuff. And YouTube was the exact same way when it came to theories about A Song of Ice and Fire. Once I finally watched the very first YouTube video on A Song of Ice and Fire, I was hooked. It was like opening Pandora's box.
My brother, the one that's now, and at the time he was in California, but now he's a professor at Pitt. He's the one that when I was telling me how into the Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones I'd gotten, he's like, there's all these theories on YouTube, right? I was like, no. And then he showed me some of them, and I was like, oh, and I was like you. I was like down the rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, I've lived in the rabbit hole ever since. To the point that I was called the mayor of Tinfoil Town. I mean, it's.
Have you ever read Mark G? What's his name? Mark G 171.
Was that Reddit?
No, that's my point. So if you want a whole other rabbit hole to chase, he's an administrator of The Last Hearth. So thelasthearth.freeforums.net, the thread 572 Danny is his masterpiece. It's probably the best write up on Lemongate.
Okay.
So if you want, that's where I would, if we want to read some analysis, that's where I would, because The Last Hearth doesn't get any love, basically, right? So anyway, it's thelasthearth.freeforums.net, and
I'll admit I'm extremely lazy when it comes to.
I'll send you a link.
Theory content. I don't read other people's stuff. I don't read. I'm not on Reddit. I've never been on. I mean, I think I got sent to Reddit
Yeah,
for
but this is
uh, finding
Lemon
out
Gate.
about what
This
was
is the
wrong.
best Lemon Gate.
Yeah, I understand that, but it is. I don't do
Well,
homework.
that's why I need to read this one. Well, I'm going to read this one, and you know we can chase as many rabbit holes, and this can take us weeks because we chase rabbit holes. But I'm going to read this one because it doesn't get enough love. And anyway, so this, as I said, Mark G171, the goat of Lemon Gate. Um, Introduction. Remember who you are, Daenerys, the stars whispered in a woman's voice. The dragons know. Do you? Um, you can read it in a stream to us, Richard. Exactly. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. We'll take it needs more audience. And we can, like I said, feel free to bring up other stuff in the comments. Feel free to, you know, this could take us forever because we like to take our time and go down chasing rabbit holes. But let's do this. Definitely not enough. There's definitely not enough coverage of this write up of Lemon Gate. It's the best. Or at least one of them. There's another one that I really liked that I need to try to track down too. Oh, one you were just talking about. Yeah. This is Mark G171. I'm telling you, he's the goat. Anyway, the purpose of this essay will be to examine the possibility that Daenerys Targaryen, protagonist of our beloved A Song of Ice and Fire novels, is not actually Daenerys Targaryen. Well, more specifically, that she's not the Daenerys Targaryen born of Aerys and Rhaella like she thinks she is. To do this, we'll examine the following areas that cast doubt on Dany being who she thinks she is. Aerys and Rhaella's history of troubled conceptions, Dany's official timeline versus what she remembers, Jon being 8 to 9 months older than Dany, the storm that marked Dany's birth, Willem Dairy, Lemongate, Dany and Viserys being robbed by their servants, Illyrio. Following all of this, we will examine a few proposed alternative parentages that I believe are the most likely options before concluding with a brief summary of the essay. Aerys and Rhaella's history of troubled conceptions and births. The goat of Harrenhal. Sadly, the marriage between Aerys II Targaryen and his sister Rhaella was not as happy. Though she turned a blind eye to most of the king's infidelities, the queen did not approve of his turning my ladies into his whores. Joanna Lannister was not the first lady to be dismissed abruptly from her grace's service, nor was she the last. Relations between the king and queen grew even more strained when Rhaella proved unable to give Aerys any further children. Miscarriages in 263 and 264 were followed by a stillborn daughter born in 267. Prince Daeron, born in 269, survived for only half a year. Then came another stillbirth in 270, another miscarriage in 271, and Prince Aegon, born 2 turns premature in 272, dead in 273. As we can see from the above, Aerys and Rhaella had an extremely difficult time conceiving children. While we don't know when exactly the two married beyond that it was pre-259 AC, given that Rhaegar's born that year, we do know that between 259 AC to 284 AC, they officially have 3 children. Those children, of course, being Rhaegar, Viserys, and Dany. Yet as you can tell from the title of this essay, it's Dany that I want to examine, and more specifically, her parentage, or rather, her real parentage, because again, prior to Dany, in 25 years of marriage, they managed to produce 2 children, and 7 stillbirths, miscarriages, and children dead in the cradle. Yet suddenly, in House Targaryen's greatest hour of need, Aerys manages to finally successfully impregnate Rhaella, and she happens to successfully deliver the child who's the girl named Daenerys Targaryen in our story. I call BS. And really, you should too. And I hope you do once you realize the staggering amount of things in our Dany story that simply do not at all make sense, and precisely don't make sense because she's not who she thinks she is. Let's start with Dany's own timeline that she tells us in her first chapter, and compare it with what she actually remembers doing in her later chapters. Dany's official timeline versus what she remembers. She did not remember Dragonstone either. They had run again, just before the usurper's brother set sail with his new-built fleet. By then, only Dragonstone itself, the ancient seat of their house, had remained of the 7 kingdoms that had once been theirs. It would not remain for long. The garrison had been prepared to sell them to the usurper, but one night, Sir Willem Dairy and 4 loyal men had broken into the nursery and stolen them both, along with her wet nurse, and set sail under cover of darkness for the safety of the Brabbosian coast. And Guy has some theories on these 4 loyal men. See the Green Barge Lemongate series. She
And
remembers.
potential on the wet nurse.
She
Well, not
remembers Sir
him.
Willem. She remembers Sir
Wow.
Willem dimly, a great gray bear of a man, half blind, roaring and bellowing orders from his sick bed. The servants had lived in terror of him, but he had always been kind to Danny. He called her Little Princess, and sometimes My Lady, and his hands were soft as old leather. And that's, of course, very suspicious in and of itself, given who he supposedly is.
And the
Yeah,
occupation.
Yep. He never left his bed, though, and the smell of sickness clung to him day and night, a hot, moist, sickly sweet odor. That was when they lived in Bravos, in the big house with the red door. Danny had her own room there, with a lemon tree outside her window. After Sir Gilliam had died, the servants had stolen what little money they had left, and soon after, they'd been put out of the big house. Danny had cried when the red door closed behind them forever. They had wandered since then, from Bravos to Mir, from Mir to Tyrosh, and on to Cohor and Volantis and Lys, never staying long in any one place. Her brother would not allow it. The usurper's hired knives were close behind them, he insisted, though Danny had never seen one. And of course, we know from Robert that he hadn't sent them until, he specifically had been denied the option by his hand or talked out of it.
That raises two questions off the top of your head. Were there actually knives after them? And if they were, who was trying to kill the last two Targaryens that wasn't Robert?
I don't think there were. I don't think there
Yeah, I
were.
don't think there were
She's
either,
an observant child who is pretty sure that she's never seen any of them, and I think that's right.
Yeah.
A princess, Danny thought. She'd forgotten what that was like. Perhaps she had never really known. Why does he give us so much? She asked. What does he want from us? For nigh on half a year, they had lived in the magister's house, eating his food, pampered by his servants. Danny was 13, old enough to know that such gifts seldom come without their price here in the free city of Pentos. So as we can see, Danny's official itinerary is Dragonstone, Bravos, Mir, Tyrosh, Cohor, Volantis, Lys, Pentos, where her story starts in a Game of Thrones. Seems all well enough, except for one problem. Danny later remembers having made a trip to Bravos when she was too old to fit this itinerary. The narrow sea was often stormy, and Danny had crossed it 100 times as a girl, running from one free city to the next, half a step ahead of the usurper's hired knives. She loved the sea. She liked the sharp, salty smell of the air and the vastness of horizons bounded only by a vault of azure sky above. It made her feel small, but free as well. She liked the dolphins that sometimes swam along beside Balerion, slicing through the waves like silvery spears, and the flying fish they glimpsed now and again. She even liked the sailors with all their songs and stories. Once on a voyage to Bravos, as she'd watched the crew wrestle down a great green sail in a rising gale, she'd even thought how fine it would be to be a sailor. But when she told her brother, Viserys had twisted her hair until she cried. "You are blood of the dragon," he had screamed at her. "A dragon, not some smelly fish." The way Aerys seems to hate and despise Rhaegar has always made me question his true parentage as well, his true father. Oh yeah. It's definitely not so subtly implied that he's Bonifer Hasty and that he acts like Bonifer Hasty. I definitely agree.
Brings into question the prophecy of the Wood Witch.
Will be born of your line. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean I witnessed in the prophecy the actual act of conception? Is that what that means? Or does that mean that will come if you marry? Right? So anyway.
I tend to agree with that second part that perceived, I don't know why I keep doing air quotes today, but the perceived lineage of Rhaegar may have fooled the foreteller of which bloodline would produce the child.
Right.
So yeah.
As we saw in her first chapter, she says that they ran from Bravos and they went to a bunch of different places, but never once that they returned to Bravos. Yet here's Danny, I don't know, maybe age 4 or 5 or something like that, on a trip to Bravos. How? Did she just forget to include in her first recalling of everything she'd been to Bravos multiple times, and that her memory of their wanderings isn't correct? Or is it more likely that she actually remembers the one and only trip she ever made to Bravos? And it's obviously not when she was a newborn child. Also, look at any map and try and follow that route that Danny says she did of Dragonstone, Bravos, Mir, Tyrosh, Cohor, Volantis, Lys, Pentos. It makes absolutely no sense, especially given the above quote that says that she crossed it, the Narrow Sea, half 100 times, meaning that they were sailing quite often to their destinations. Dragonstone to Bravos? Sure, it's an easy trip to make, but why would you ever go to Bravos with the last two dragon lords in the world? Bravos is literally founded by descendants of dragon haters. My lord jests. You forgive me if I do not laugh. We Bravos are descended from those who fled Valeria and the wrath of its dragon lords. We do not jape of dragons. Bravos is not a safe haven, or at least it really shouldn't be. Yes, the Sea Lord later witnesses a pact between Viserys and Arianne, so it's possible that that particular Sea Lord was Valerian friendly, but most Bravosi are not, and Danny should have zero idea if the Sea Lord would be Valerian friendly. So why
And
does
some people question the legitimacy of that pact to begin with?
Derry should have zero idea if this Sea Lord would be Valerian friendly. Well, and is it really in? She assumes that it's in Bravos, but the Sea Lord is a lord of the sea. Like he can go places.
There are boats. It's like Chardane. Her feet were not nailed down.
Yes, exactly. So why was Bravos picked? It's an odd choice for the last two dragon lords in the world to do for safekeeping, or to go to for safekeeping is probably what he meant. Next up,
I'm trying to find the
map. It's in the front of each book.
Well, not of.
Oh, you want one of the ones from the later books where they have it, where they show that, where they show
the three cities,
points east and so forth.
They do.
Look at probably Feast, probably the Feast map. Be the one to look at.
Okay.
Might be in Storm.
Yeah, all those are in the living room.
Okay. Next up, we've got Bravos to Mir. I'd say though that you probably stopped in at Pentos after Bravos, actually, seeing as you have to sail by Pentos to go to Mir in the first place. So that's a little odd. They could have hired the ship to sail straight to Mir, of course, but why skip Pentos? What brought them straight to Mir over Pentos? Pentos has tons of nobility. We know this. Viserys should know this too. Yet they go to Mir instead of Pentos? Then we've got Mir to Tyrosh. Now this actually ties into why they went Bravos to Mir in the first place as well, but this doesn't actually make much sense that Mir came before Tyrosh. Tyrosh is closer to Bravos, not Mir. You'd have to literally sail within sight of Tyrosh to get to Mir. The itinerary should really go Bravos, Tyrosh, Mir, not Bravos, Mir, Tyrosh. Next, we have Tyrosh to Cohor. Again, this doesn't make much sense. Cohor is inland in Essos. More specifically, looking at a map, if you're traveling from Tyrosh, you're either stopping in at Mir or Pentos first before you ever get near Cohor, which supports the previous paragraph's assertion that there's better ways to accomplish their itinerary. And this supports this, as this itinerary means that they've got to stop at Mir twice now, or possibly Pentos again, if they ever stop there on the way after Bravos. But again, there are far more efficient trips. Currently, Danny and Viserys are going in circles. Next, we've got Cohort of Volantis. And you know what? This actually makes sense.
Bravos at the top, straight down is Pentos. There's a dragon road from Pentos that works its way to Norvos, another dragon road from Norvos to Cohor. And then you have the Mir, and then Tyrosh, and then Lys, and then Volantis. Volantis is connected to both Norvos and Cohor, and it is not actually out of the realm of possibility to go inland from Pentos, just like Tyrion does to take the river down to Volantis. So
next, we've got Cohort of Volantis.
Huh?
I was going to go ahead and continue if you want. You want to follow along while I continue here?
I found the map, so yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
These next ones are going to actually make sense, basically. Next, we've got Cohort of Atlantis. And you know what? This one actually makes sense. Oh, there's some small cities along the way that I'm sure that they'd have stopped at as well. But you can sail southwards down the Coin, merge onto the Roine, and you'll hit Volantis, no problem. Next, we've got Volantis to Lys. Again, this one actually makes sense too. Just sail westward from Volantis, and Lys is the first free city you'll hit. What gives me some pause, though, and it may be nothing, but Dany and Viserys, as I mentioned earlier, were previously going in circles, yet now seem to be getting direct to their next destination in their last few stops. I find this odd, as the years pass, Dany and Viserys are getting poorer, not richer. Their previous travels should be the more direct routes, not their later ones, where they're likely taking whatever passage they could get. It could be nothing. And like I say, there's logical stops being made, but the previous illogical order of the stops back when they had more money than they currently do seems off. I'd expect things to be the opposite. But anyways, next we get to Lys to Pentos. This is extremely dubious. To go from Lys to Pentos, you need to sail past Tyrosh and Myr. But more importantly, and I've alluded to this several times already, why the hell was Pentos literally the last place that they went to 13 years after they fled Dragonstone, when Pentos is the nearest free city to Dragonstone? That should have been their very first stop, not the dragon-hating Braavosi. It should have been their stop after Braavos, if not their first stop. It should have been their stop after Tyrosh, if not their first stop. Pentos should have occurred so much sooner. As we can see, this whole trip is wonky. They go all over the place in no logical order. But it's even wonkier when you consider the fact that, again, Dany remembers sailing to Braavos. Now, not only does Dany never list having returned to Braavos in her itinerary of where her and Viserys wandered to, so already there's one red flag in that, I've got to wonder, when the fuck did they sail to Braavos? Literally, look at the itinerary she gave us. The stops she says she made. At no point whatsoever will she be sailing to Braavos. Braavos is nowhere near any of the free cities she goes to. Once Dany and Viserys sail south, they remain in southern Essos. Braavos is as far north as you can go in Essos. They literally never once, ever sail back to Braavos to get to any of their locations. Not once. No ship ever makes this trip that Dany remembers making. It makes zero sense. And again, Dany seems pretty young in this memory. She's naively thinking about being a common sailor when she's the heir to a dynasty. But all of their trips are in southern Essos at this time. At no point do they ever go north enough to ever warrant sailing remotely anywhere near Braavos for one of their stops. Except the first time that Dany would have gone to Braavos, that is. With that aside, Dany's journeys utterly do not make sense anyways. Which makes sense itself, because if we simply go over the timeline, as we will in the very next section of this essay, it shouldn't make sense because the itinerary itself is not correct. But Dany's memory of that trip to Braavos is. The problem with Jon being 8 to 9 months older than Dany if Dany's born 9 months after the sack. So we know from a rather infamous SSM that Jon's 8 to 9 months older than Dany. This is problematic, to say the least. From Dany 1 in Game of Thrones, we know that Dany is born 9 moons after the sack. So Jon is therefore born within a month of the sack then. Now, most commonly, fans of Song of Ice and Fire tend to believe in RLJ, and that Jon was born at the Tower of Joy shortly before or during when Ned arrives, within this month of the sack. But this isn't actually possible, though. First off, Ned says that the war had raged for a year by the sack of King's Landing. The war had raged for close to a year. Lords great and small had flocked to Robert's banners. Others had remained loyal to Targaryen. The mighty Lannisters of Casterly Rock, the Wards of the West, had remained aloof from the struggle, ignoring calls to arms from both rebels and royalists. Aerys Targaryen must have thought that his gods had answered his prayers when Lord Tywin Lannister appeared before the gates of King's Landing with an army 12,000 strong, professing loyalty. So the Mad King had ordered his last mad act. He'd open his city to the lions at the gate. And of course, that's a reference. But anyway, we talked about that when we were covering that chapter, which is probably now no longer available anyway.
Probably.
And we know that the Siege of Storm's End also lasts a year as well. Why did Stannis leave? Had he played some part in Jon Arryn's murder? Or was he afraid? Ned found it hard to imagine what could frighten Stannis Baratheon, who had once held Storm's End through a year of siege, surviving on rats and boot leather while the Lords Tyrell and Redwyne sat outside with their hosts, banqueting in sight of his walls. Maester Cresson remembered the day Davos had been knighted. After the Siege of Storm's End, Lord Stannis and a small garrison had held the castle for close to a year against the great host of the Lords Tyrell and Redwyne. Even the sea was closed against them, watched day and night by Redwyne galleys flying the burgundy banners of the arbor. Within Storm's End, the horses had long since been eaten, the dogs and cats were gone, and the garrison was down to roots and rats. Then came a night when the moon was new and black clouds hid the stars. Cloaked in that darkness, Davos the smuggler had dared the Redwyne cordon and the rocks of Shipbreaker Bay alike. His little ship had a black hull, black sails, black oars, and a hold crammed with onions and saltfish. Little enough, yet it had kept the garrison alive long enough for Eddard Stark to reach Storm's End and break the siege. Tyrion had to bite his tongue at that. Robb Stark had won more battles in a year than the Lord of Highgarden had in 20. Tyrell's reputation rested on one indecisive victory over Robert Baratheon at Ashford, in a battle largely won by Lord Tarley's van before the main host had even arrived. The siege of Storm's End, where Mace Tyrell actually did hold the command, had dragged on a year to no result, and after the Trident was fought, the Lord of Highgarden had meekly dipped his banners to Eddard Stark. During Robert's rebellion, Lord Tyrell of Highgarden laid siege to Storm's End for a year without result. If the garrison's supplies had been sufficient to the task, the castle might have held out indefinitely, but the word came quickly, and the storehouses and granaries were only half full. At year's end, the garrison under Lord Robert's brother Stannis was sorely tested by hunger and want, only to be saved by a common smuggler who slipped through the red wine blockade one night, carrying a load of onions and saltfish to Storm's End. Thus the castle was able to stand unbroken until Robert defeated Rhaegar and the Trident, and Lord Eddard Stark arrived to end the siege. Talk about one and done, LOL. I defeated your uncle Victarion and his iron fleet off Fair Isle, the first time your father crowned himself. I held Storm's End against the power of the Reach for a year and took Dragonstone from the Targaryens. I smashed Mance Rayder at the wall, though he had 20 times my numbers. Tell me, Turncloak, what battles has the bastard of Bolton ever won that I should fear him? So both events occur after a year.
On that Storm's End for a year. The war doesn't start until Jon Arryn calls his banner. He refuses the king, calls his banners. That's the beginning of Robert's rebellion. The Mace Tyrell doesn't automatically just run up to the Storm's End and just sits there. You still have Robert in the Vale, Robert fighting at Gulltown, Robert getting on a ship, Robert going all the way to Storm's End, gathering men, fighting 3 battles in a single day. And,
right.
and
that's what he's going to explain why he's giving these quotes.
Yeah. Sorry.
No problem. So both events occur after a year from their respective start dates. The siege, however, only begins after the Battle of Ashford. And the Battle of Ashford can't happen until Jon Arryn calls his banners, which marks the start of the year until the sack marches to Goldtown to fight the Battle of Goldtown. Robert then travels to Storm's End. Robert calls his banners. His bannermen arrive with their forces. Robert travels to Summerhall and fights the battles of Summerhall. Robert returns to Storm's End and goes hawking and feasting with the lords he just beat at Summerhall, while spending enough time to win them to his cause. Then travels to Ashford for the Battle of Ashford. Then the siege of Storm's End can't begin until Mace Tyrell marches from Ashford to Storm's End. Thus begins the year until the end of the siege, after all this has occurred since the countdown began to the year until the sack occurs. Now, if Jon Arryn calling his banners to the sack is 1 year, and after the Battle of Ashford to the end of the siege of Storm's End is also 1 year, then all the time between Jon Arryn calling his banners to the beginning of the siege of Storm's End is the same amount of time between the sack of King's Landing and the end of the siege as a year is a year. That's the only way for them to have both lasted a year. The Battle of Ashford doesn't start till months into the war, so the siege of Storm's End doesn't end until months after the sack either. And we know that by the time of the Tower of Joy, the siege has already been lifted. I came down on Storm's End to lift the siege, Ned told them, and the lords Tyrell and Redwine dipped their banners, and all their knights bent the knee to pledge us fealty. It was certain you would be among them. So what we get if we follow that timeline is that the sack occurs a few months past before the siege ends, and then however long it took for Ned to go to the Tower of Joy, which, by the way, we are never told immediately occurred after he accepted Mace's surrender. Therefore, if Dany is born 9 months after the sack, and Jon's born in the Tower of Joy, as most fans think, which occurs after the siege, which itself occurs months after the sack, I'd expect him to be around only at most 5 to 6 months older than Dany, as the Tower of Joy would be a few months after the sack. Jon cannot be 8 to 9 months older than Dany if he's born at the Tower of Joy. He'd be like 3 months old at that point. Someone's birth date isn't right here. Ding, 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 ding. Neither of them, probably.
Exactly.
Either Dany's not born 9 months after the sack like she thinks she is, and therefore Jon's birthday can be whenever as it no longer has a fixed time to occur at, or Jon was a few months old by the time Ned arrived at the Tower of Joy if Dany's birthday of 9 months after the sack is actually correct. And that's the key point. If Dany's birthday in the books is correct, which we just established that it might not be, it's either her or Jon's birthday that isn't right. But notably, Jon's birthday is never actually established anywhere in the books. Danny's repeatedly is. We have no idea how to figure out John's birthday without using the info in the books about Danny's birthday, which we just established doesn't end up being right, or at least not right in how most fans perceive things. Danny's birthday is the base mark here. And well, it's wrong. Hence why John's birthday doesn't seem to make any sense either. And there's a boatload of information that can be found in the books that supports that Danny's past doesn't quite add up, precisely because it's not supposed to. So let's examine these oddities then, and let's stop here because we're at time and it's a new section.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the storm.
I'm telling Christopher, with the beginning of the Roberts Rebellion starting when John Aaron refuses the Mad King and calls his banners, the time from that and all the stuff that has to happen between that for the we're not told exact how many months before it's Rhaegar takes Lyanna. We don't know how long after that. Brandon is told that Rhaegar has him. The trip to King's Landing, calling out Rhaegar. He gets thrown in a black cell, and then ravens are sent to the lords, the people that were with him. And if Brandon is headed to River Run for the wedding, then his father would have been headed to River Run for the wedding. So now you got ravens going from King's Landing all the way to Winterfell when Lord Rickon is not at Winterfell. And now you have to have ravens go from Winterfell to River Run. And then and he's not going to run out the door as soon as he gets the raven call. He's still got to take care of stuff. And then to travel from River Run to King's Landing. You don't know that it's right that day that he walks in and has to fight fire. There's so much free time that we don't know about that from Rhaegar meeting Lyanna on the road wherever it happens and John Aaron calling the banners. You can make Danny the baby of the Tower of Joy 2 to 3 months after the end of the sack of King's Landing, and have John 8 to 9 months before that, and it fit in the timeline. You just have to play around with what happens before John Aaron calls the banners. You have to the wall to fell on travel, the Raven flight 100 miles a day, what possibly could happen. I mean, it's because it's not instantly. Well, he gets there, this happens, and then this happens, and then that happens. There are days in between, planning, all that kind of stuff. There's travel. So, I mean, you can shits and giggle it to where John is 8 to 9 months older than Danny, and Danny's still the baby born in Tower of Joy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry.
No. Anyway.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps add some evidence that maybe John's not born at the Tower of Joy. Anyway.
I agree 100%. And Tyrion cannot be completely trusted because, again, pouring your
no, I think he's actually right. I think he's actually consistently right about the ages, and that's the point. He's like this kid is he doesn't actually say this kid is the same age as Danny. He uses that 15, 16 or near enough to talk about the slave girl auctioned off after him and say that's the same age as Danny, and refer to Aegon as 15, 16 or near enough, right? And so he's using this 15, 16 near enough to tie the trip. How did I actually somehow managed to get that out when I did this video, when I did these videos, to tie the trip, to tie our teenage triplet Targaryens together. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, the Bucket Tower of Winterfell sounds like the Tower of Joy. Yeah, that's where you are, right? That's and what old new dude has done is he said that the parallel, and this is somewhat from the Order of the Green Hand also has video about this, saying that maybe R plus L isn't born at the Tower of Joy. Maybe R plus L is actually born at Winterfell, because there's all these parallels that imply that the taking of the daughter of Winterfell's daughter and absconding with her, and the whole time you're actually hiding in the crypts, right? That's the parallel. So what if they're actually hiding in the crypts, and Benjen is like feeding them food, and Ned's mad because this whole war happened because you wouldn't speak up.
We're about to open a Pandora's box.
Let's
I agree
absolutely.
with Christy on this 100%. It's one of my favorite.
Let's wrap. And,
right,
and I like how how it manages to combine some things, but I also like the Tower of Joy symbolism in Dorne and the Dornish law applying and all that stuff too. So I suspect that George would go with it, and he likes to plant seeds in multiple directions and so forth. Anyway, let's wrap up.
All right, Friday is it what the Kingmaker?
Kingmaker, which is designed to imply that he's the Kingmaker, which is one of the clues that it implies that he might choose Aegon over Dany. Bell the Bard is in the crypts. Mance is able, and Selmy says Rhaegar above all was able. Yes. We've covered that one as well.
I agree 100%. But all right, thank y'all for joining us, and we'll see you back here Friday. Y'all have fun. Take care, and bye. Bye, Richard.
Have a good one.